Boom. Just came up.
All right. We are live. So I need to go to videos, right? Live.
Mm-hmm.
I can pause the live stream, but
Mm-hmm.
we're on the
Hey.
chat. Roger's
Yep.
here. Is there a live stream? Yes, there
Yep.
is.
Yep.
Bubba is here. He's looking at the live stream.
What's up, Bubba?
Josh is here. Got about 14 people watching. All I got to do is post this on Facebook and tell them Rico's on live with me, and we're good to go. We should have about 150 to 350 people watching. What's up, everybody? Rico, actually, with your lights out, your tank looks just as awesome.
Thanks.
Like, even though everything looks brown, now with the contrast between the dark and what your corals are, you can see like the structure of everything in the tank. It's not blurred out by the light.
Yeah.
It looks amazing, actually,
Thank you.
without lights on. Your tank
Thank
looks
you.
amazing with lights and without lights.
Thank you.
Ooh, who you might want to make Bubba a moderator. I have quite a few moderators, including Rico. But as Rico will attest to, I know computers about as well as I know how to fly a rocket ship to Jupiter. And I probably won't be able to do that mid live stream. Mitch is in the house. Bubba's still here. Abhishek Zubalan. Peace, my man. I have no clue where you're from, but that name is awesome. I got my fancy microphone and awesome headset. Rico's still in his chair. He's been there all day.
Yes.
Uncle Greg's in the house.
What's up, Greg?
Who we got? All right, see? Or are they up to 26? Good to go. For everybody just tuning in, my boy Rico, who I talk to and who runs the live streams all the time. I've been dying to get on a live stream, and I have no chance to schedule ever a live stream. And he has been on live streams all day, and he's been nice enough to come on. I'm sure his wife's really happy about it to do a second live stream tonight. But go check her out. I'm going to have Rico type in the comments, LuLaRoe. Go buy stuff from Rico's wife.
There you go.
Do it now. And I thought it'd be great to have Rico on because even though I like to bust chops and I like to mess around a lot on live streams and on my videos, seriously, Rico knows a lot about saltwater reef tanks, specifically corals, and I'm thrilled to have him on because this is right here is a dictionary. It's a wealth of knowledge. So all my subscribers out there that are looking for answers to your questions, this is the man to talk to. So please ask questions and he will answer them. I'm excited to see what he has to say, as well as I just want to kind of talk a little bit about how planted tanks and taking care of coral reefs can be somewhat similar in the pain in the ass section or the go easy section. So whoever's got a question for Rico, let's throw one out there.
Yeah.
Who's got questions for Rico? Oh, well, we have I just started CO2 injection and have great results. So you advise and information has worked. That's great, Anthony. Yes, CO2 injections work great for planted tanks. Once you get your bubbles per second dialed in and your lighting and your flow, it's basically just like a reef tank. Lots of things to dial in.
Yep. We inject CO2 in our calcium reactor, so.
Now, calcium reactors. Let's talk. Let's spend a couple minutes on a calcium reactor. Now, I don't run a calcium reactor, and I have no clue what that means. Explain to the viewers.
Okay, so you have a couple options with a reef tank. Basically, things that you're going to dose to your tank, whether it's water change, two-part, using a doser pump, or a calcium reactor. There is no difference. They're all just the same ways of replenishing things in our tank. So a lot of people start off with just doing simple water changes. That's to replenish things that are being utilized by the animals that we are keeping in our tanks. So calcium reactors, just another form of dosing our tank with calcium, alkalinity, major elements, and minor trace elements.
So, in your opinion, what would you think would be easier for someone who's looking into doing less water changes and doing more dosing? Would it be a dosing pump or a calcium reactor?
Not just because I use calcium reactors, but hands down, calcium reactor runs a long time before you have to replenish any of the media in there, versus dosing pumps. Here's the thing. It really this is a trick question because it really boils down to your tank size as well and demands. So therefore, the cost of a calcium reactor versus maybe a dosing pump these days is going to be a little bit more upfront costs, but cheaper in the long run. But once again, that depends on the animals that you're keeping in your tank and the consumption rate. So it's kind of a trick question to truly answer that. It really boils down to the individual tank size and things that they're actually keeping inside their tank.
Now, real quick, I'm curious. I see behind you to the right, there looks like, oh, the other way. Is there 3 clownfish in your tank?
There's actually 4, 1 up here and 3 down here.
So I recently, for the Rico's Nano Challenge 2018, just put in a 3rd clownfish in my tank because I was starting all over and I couldn't take them back to the LFS. And I knew bad things were about to happen, but it didn't. And now it's been almost 2 months and all 3 clownfish are getting along. Whereas I already had an established pair in my tank and I added a 2nd female, was the female in my 10-gallon, and they've got along for almost 2 months now. Now, am I in for a disaster, or are they good to go?
It's truly a hit and miss when it comes to that. There used to be another one that's in here, and now he's relocated. He pretty much committed suicide. I found him on the floor, pretty much dry, and I went to pick him up, and he kind of moved a little bit. So I threw him in another tank, and he kind of laid at the bottom for a day or so and kind of rehydrated. And he's living peacefully in a separate system. It's really hit and miss. Now there's 3 here that's okay, but usually 2 of them goes to the opposite side of the tank through the whole day, and at nighttime they come back over here and they seem to do fine. But they're not killing each other, but it's a really it's a hit and miss. How long they're going to continue to do that before they're going to physically try to kill each other, that's another story. I've seen good and bad, both sides. It's one of those things that's you really can't say.
So let's get into the question. The real reason why I wanted to have us on is because I'm always going on your live streams. I absolutely love them. Anybody who's watching, check out Rico's live streams. He's daily. Sometimes he's on for 2 hours. Sometimes he's on. The other day he was on for over 7 hours. So that's some dedication. What
16 hours
I always try to go in and use any knowledge I have to try to compare some things with plants. Now, I don't know if you guys can see in the background, that is a one beautifully planted tank right there. Very low tech, dosing CO2, root tabs only, no liquid fertilizers. But I wanted to get Rico's take on the similarities between your coral reef tanks and your planted tanks. And a lot of people sway towards one, they sway towards the other. I like to go both ways. Sorry, folks. I like to have corals and I like to have plants. Now, when you have a planted tank, in some cases, depending on the difficulties of the plant, there are plants that you would say are like SPS corals, where they need pressurized CO2, they need iron, they need potassium, they need all your trace elements. If they have red in them, they need certain light. Like, it's very, very hard to grow plants that make a tank beautiful. And I feel like there's a lot of similarities with coral reef tanks, where you can have tanks with softies that maybe only need a little bit of, they're light and a water change, and then you slowly graduate to certain types of corals. Now, I texted something on Rico's live stream the other day that if you don't want to take care of your tank, don't fill your tank with SPS corals, which my whole point was, if you want to take care of everything in your tank, you're going to have to do the work. And there's differences between low-tech tanks and high-tech tanks. So Rico, what do you think are some of the, I would say, difficulties, or what would you say some of the time you have to put in to have your more difficult corals in your reef tank?
The time and effort is patience.
Over the years, I'm not talking what you do during every day, because you're already used to it. When you're starting out, you have a lot to learn. What are some key points you can give the beginners to get their tanks looking as nice as yours?
First off, you definitely want to plan, and I will always tell a beginner, my personal opinion is, pick out a spot in your home that you can fit the biggest tank in. And the reason why I say that is just due to the fact of for user error, meaning making things a little bit easier for when you make a boo-boo, you're not quite wiping out your whole system. Outside of that is also patience. Don't try to rush something. You're not going to have a full blown out tank overnight. It takes time, and you have to, if you're an impatient person, it's a good time to have a reef tank, because it's going to teach you patience. I mean, that's pretty much it. It's just be patient, get the biggest tank you can get with the space that you have, and just do things slow. I would definitely, let me add this, I would definitely understand and learn the testing water parameters. It's very key to understand that you do have to test water parameters to have an understanding on what exactly is going on with inside your tank. A lot of people don't quite understand testing. They take it to their LFS, have them tested. And we had a subject earlier today where they just told him he was good. Well, what does good mean? He didn't give the gentleman an actual physical number to go off of. He just told him he was good. So it's best to learn these things for yourself. And as you learn these things, don't try to get into dosing stuff. Don't try to get into some of the stuff that you see some of these people that's been in the hobby for a while. Just do simple water changes and be patient. I hope that sums it up some.
Yeah, I would say the main thing that you said that makes it extremely right to the point is you need to be patient with any tank you have. Your reef tank, your planted tank. You cannot just throw things in the tank and do water changes for the most part and expect everything to be absolutely gorgeous. There has to be good parenthood. You need to take care of the tank. You need to do your maintenance. A lot of my comments on all my videos are, how did you do this? How did you do that? What are you keeping this? And they try to mimic everything you're doing because they think that it's going to come out exactly how Rico's reef tank is, or Mike's planted tank is, or this person's, the king of DIYs, 2,000 gallon, Dustin's this person that. Everybody's tank is going to be completely different. Now, you can go by certain steps to try to get it where you need it to be, but you need to learn how your tank lives, basically, and what your tank, right? So I'm going to put every coral that you have, but how do I know that some of my corals aren't consuming more of calcium than your corals. And when you try to copy somebody, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. You need to learn your own tank.
Good point. And just for me to kind of follow what you're saying there, I have a lot of those questions asked myself. And the problem is people don't understand that no two tanks are ever going to run the same. You're talking about different bioloads. You're talking about different animals. You're talking about different volume of water, live rock, lighting schedule. There's too many variables in that. And that's where people, I think, make their biggest mistake is trying to mimic somebody else's tank. And instead of trying to mimic somebody else's tank, it's just taking the time out to understand your tank, what you have at the moment, and watch them and try to do what you need to do to keep the animals that you are currently having in your system happy. Don't worry about what Joe Blow or your cousin's friends, brothers, sisters, whatever is doing. Worry about what you're doing. Take the time out to study, observe your tank. Also, with that, that doesn't mean when the weather warms up, you get to take a vacation. That's where bad things happen, especially with new hobbyists, because it's not cold anymore. They want to go outside and enjoy things. That's fine. But you still have to take time for your system because your system is basically another child. And you have to understand that, you have to feed your kids. You got to do all this other stuff. So just wanted to add a little bit to that.
Yeah, it really is. Seasonal is a lot. A lot of people during the winter, especially where I live, they go crazy with adding fish tanks because they're completely bored. They're adding refugiums and they're adding sumps, and then they're starting up a nano, and then they're doing this tank, and then multi-tank syndrome takes over, and they have all these tanks that are so fun because they're stuck indoors, and then all of a sudden they've got, if they have kids, they're going to soccer and baseball, and then they're going camping, and then they're going fishing, and then they're going to the pool or to the beach, and then all of a sudden you have 10 more tanks than you started with and no time to take care of them. And that I've seen that so many times. It's bound to happen to everybody, and you just kind of have to learn it for yourself if you don't take somebody's word for it.
In a way, it's kind of sad because you just don't go out and buy a dog and then decide not to take care of it because of, you got other things and priorities. So you kind of got to look at it like that. A lot of people don't, for whatever reason, look at it as a dog or as a child. The best thing I could tell people is always look at your tank as if it's an actual human being versus any kind of animals, and that will probably promote you to do the best that you're going to do when it comes to this hobby.
Yeah, one of the greatest things I always tell people, we're at a cookout, we're grilling, barbecuing, everybody's having a good time. You're playing washers or horseshoes, and people talking about their dogs and their cats, and then I start talking about my corals or my fish tanks, and everybody's like, anytime you mention fish tank or corals, someone thinks Nemo or they think of like a betta in a bowl, and they don't realize that what you're taking care of is actually like a live ecosystem.
Yeah.
And they just don't get it, and it's comical that you try to explain it to them sometimes, but most times I'm just like, yep, I got a fish tank, or I don't even mention it at all because I don't want to talk about it.
In this hobby, you will find yourself, especially when you open yourself up, especially with the media, Google, Hangouts and YouTube and Instagram and all that. Once you open yourself up and expose yourself, you'll always continue to get that. And you do have to understand that you will never stop repeating yourself. So it's kind of one of those things you're either going to get used to it or you're not. They might have not been there for the live stream, or they're just new to the channel or something like that. They will always, and even those the people that have been there for quite some time and probably heard you say it multiple times will ask the same question over and over and over. And I don't know if it's just to have some kind of reinsurance of what you're talking about. They need to hear you repeat it. Are you going to recant something? Are you going to backpedal? I don't know what the situation is when it comes to that. But I love the hobby enough where I just kind of accept it for what it is, and just keep repeating yourself
What,
until you
what
get it.
when you're unsure of something, the most satisfying feeling is being reassured multiple times.
There, there it
You're a
is.
family man, and you know your kids, you know, they ask you the same questions over and over and over again because they want daddy or they want mommy to tell them that, you know, yes, 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 yes. They want to be reassured. When
Yep.
you're starting off with the planted tanks and the coral tanks, and you're slowly adding things and something goes wrong, and you're like the YouTube daddy, and you're like, yep, that's completely normal. Brown algae diatoms is normal with a new setup. Don't worry. Just be patient. It'll go away. You know, and they're just going to come back and leave the same comment over and over and over again. They just want to be reassured that everything is going to be okay because you've done it before. And that's when, you know, as a YouTuber, a creator, like Joey says, as someone who puts content out there,
Mhm.
I've always said, if you don't want to reply to the people that comment on your videos, then don't put a video up, because they need to know. They need to be reassured that what they're doing is, you know, going to hopefully send them on the right path.
Um, and yes, they do. And hopefully they, you know, the whole reassuring part is just something that's just, I feel, in human nature to do, um, because one of the point, like you said, diatoms, green hair algae, blase, blase, that stuff seems to come at you 100 miles an hour. And it's one of those things that take quite some time to get rid of. It doesn't happen overnight. And so I think that's part of where they constantly ask that question over and over for that reassurance. Is it really going to, it's been 2 months and it's still, trust and believe it's going to. See, here's the problem. Nothing, Mike said it best, Mike Paletta, nothing good happens fast in this hobby. Nothing. Only bad things happen fast. And
Right.
when bad things do happen, just understand that you might fight some hair algae for 4 months, 5 months. I've seen people go almost a year because things were so out of whack. It happens, but you have to understand, first and foremost, is patience. Patience. Don't get frustrated. Just have patience.
Patience is definitely the key. And it almost seems like, in my opinion, every single tank that I've ever set up really has gone through every stage of shittiness before it's settled in. I don't think, and my first tank when I was when I was 8 years old. I'm 38. So it was 30 years ago I had my first tank. And I've continued to have tanks for my whole life. There wasn't one tank that I set up that was just perfect from start to finish. There was always a problem until you figured out what the problem was, or you slowly, just the problem took care of itself. There's so many variables. It's really so hard, and I can see how frustrating it is for beginners to watch your channel, watch my channel, watch all these channels,
Mm-hmm.
and they see these perfect, beautiful tanks, and they're like, "Oh my God, Rico's tank is absolutely gorgeous. He knows exactly what he's doing. Let me just ask all these questions, and he's going to solve every problem I have in my tank, and my tank's going to be beautiful too." It never goes that way. So to have the patience and the strength, I guess, and not the strength, that's a little over the top, but just besides patience, if you have the diligence and the want to realize what's going on, you can eventually have a great tank. But it just doesn't happen. And I'm sorry to say it, but it just does not happen.
No. All anything you setting up brand new is going to go through certain stages. Now, I'm very old school reefer, and I use actual true live rock. And a lot of people think that live rock is, you go to LFS and you pick the stuff out of their bin. No, I'm talking about harvested straight from the ocean live rock. Most people nowadays don't do that. They start with a lot of dead stuff, whatever, because they don't want pests or this or that. And me, I don't mind those things, and I get better results than most, due to, you know, there's so many different fish and things that we can put in our system to alleviate any kind of pest. And understanding that now, that's a little bit more advanced, but understand that when you're new and you're setting up a tank, it's not going to be the prettiest thing. Things are going to start finding themselves. They're going to start becoming a ecosystem. Bacteria has to grow, colonize, and understanding that, you're going to get spurts of different kinds of algae in different phases, and it happens, and it happens to everybody. So don't think that when you see big tanks or anything like that, don't be intimidated by it. Ask questions, but understand that we all go through things when it comes to setting up new systems. I mean, it's a baby. What happens when you have a newborn baby? Let's just put it like that. Well, the baby spits up on you, pukes on you, poops, and does all this other stuff, right? You have to clean it, right? So you just clean it. You get in there and you siphon and pull out as much algae stuff that you can, and go on about your business. Well, that baby starts to go to the bathroom on its own and doesn't need diapers and wipe its own butt, and starts to feed and talk and do all this stuff. You got to look at your system in that way. It's going to not move, then it's going to crawl, then it's going to walk, and then it's going to reward you with running and going to college and have big colonies and all that. Long as you have patience and understanding that these are the stages that you're going to have to go through, period.
So along those lines, I've been dying to ask this question, and since you seem to know a lot about it, I'm going to ask the question and then go grab a beer and let you go off, because I know my subscribers and myself want to know about this. So, one of my best buddies in the whole world, and it's weird to say because I've known him about 4 years, and it was only through conversation via phone until I finally met him at the Aquatic Experiences, Michael Ahrens. And he got me into saltwater from planted tanks for 30 years or whatever. Said, you need to get into saltwater. You would kill it, and you'll learn about it. And he always taught me, start off with dry rock. Start off with rock that is not alive, so that you're not taking in any pests, and nothing is being added to your tank to get you off on the wrong foot. And so that's the way I've always gone. Now, I love this Carib Sea life rock, they call it. Now, whether it's infused with beneficial bacteria or not, I really don't know, because I'm not a scientist. But I do know that it's purple, and that it's beautiful, and that it has great crevices to stick all my frags and all my corals. And you can bust it up any way you like it. But I've been always asked this question, and I have no answer, because I've never bought or started a tank off with live rock. So now, give me your reason why you would start off your tank with live rock as opposed to dry rock. Now, folks, dry rock is just that. It's rock that has no living things on it. It's nothing. Go for it.
Do I really have to answer this one? Okay.
I need to know. You just started talking about live rock, and that's been one of my
biodiversity, beneficial bacteria that you're going to receive when it comes to live rock. Now, don't get me wrong. There are certain pests you're not going to want in your tank. You got bobbit worms. You got, acro-eating stuff. You got manna shrimps. You can get whatever. You can get a slew of things. But as we should know, everything eats everything. There's always a predator for something. And that's also a reason why I run a ton of wrasse in my system, so I don't have to worry about those things. They're there for a reason. I don't buy fish because they look pretty. I buy fish that are going to work for me, and I, in return, reward them with a good variety of diets and foods. Now, also with dry rock, you have none of that. You're starting from literally scratch, which is not a problem neither. It just takes a lot longer with dry rock out the gate um, to allow certain corals to actually take off. Um, I think it was Mike. We had a conversation. I think he also did a video on American Reef about it. That he at dry rock when he set up a tank with dry rock, corals didn't do nothing. They didn't really necessarily die, but they didn't encrust and they didn't do what they need to do. It takes time. And when I mean time is, I say a good indicator is sponges. Sponges is a good indicator as far as how healthy a tank is, how things are going, not the little pineapple sponges, but actual sponges. If it's on the rock or growing on the rock, it's a good indicator to let you know that your tank is thriving. And it's a good indicator because I feel like there's some kind of relation between sponges and I'm going to say acros because that's what I'm a big fan of. That's what I like is SPS corals. And when you've got sponges, your corals seem to do very well. Sponges start dying, your corals seem not to do so hot. But the difference between it, for dry rock, it seems like it takes about 2 years to actually fully come into what you need it to do in this hobby. This is just from what I've seen. I personally never, ever, ever ran dry rock. Will I ever?
Let me interrupt you real quick. Now, when you say sponges,
Yes.
what exactly are you talking about? Is this something that you order? Is this something that you go to the LFS? Is this something that just occurs on live rock?
Yeah, there's spores and they create, you got white sponges. Like I have a bunch of sponges right here in the front on this rock. I got sponges underneath rock. They come in brown, blue, red, whatever, all different varieties of colors. So not
and that's something that's good. So when people see these sponges,
yes,
that's a good sign that the water.
Sponges are good. Yes. They actually help you as well. They take in silicates that we don't really want in our system per se. They actually do a job with filtering the water for you and absorb these things. So
now silicates, a lot of people always ask about that. That's something that leaches from the substrate.
Depending on the substrate. But yeah, the black substrate really is not the idea for sand bottom with the black sand. I know so many people have seen reef tanks and stuff with black sand. That's really not the idea. It's tons of silicates in it, stuff like that.
All right, so continue with the dry rock. It takes forever to actually get that thing alive.
It takes a long time. Now, the flip side of that, but then it kind of goes against the grain as well for people that don't want. You could take some from another system, some good that's been around, maybe a friend. You see his tank thriving, looking good. You feel comfortable that he doesn't have any pests, or you can quarantine a good chunk of that rock from your buddy and watch it, at night to see if anything comes out the rock or whatever. But then turn around and take that big chunk of rock and add it to your system to really help seed your new system that you only have dry rock to give you the different varieties of beneficial bacteria. That's the key. I just feel system just does a lot better from what I've seen over the years versus how technology and how things are done now. I feel like we still win when it comes to live rock and having that biodiversity that people really don't ever talk about.
So this is another question I had written down for you that I wanted to ask, and then I also wanted to come back to the planted side of that. So now you see a lot of people on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube saying that they're starting their reef tank. They bought their let's use CJ, and I think it's Reefer Girl, or I forget the other one, but anyway, they're getting Pukani and they're gonna bleach it and basically kill everything on it, and then they're going to cure it. Now, can you tell us because from everybody else, all you see is bleach and cure. So can you tell us
Okay.
exactly what they're doing and what they're
Okay.
talking about?
Basically, Pucani rock is pretty much a dirty rock. It's a good rock. It's a beautiful rock, but it has a lot of things that are entombed into the rock. Okay, so when they pull it, things dry, encrust on that rock. There's a lot of life that was down in that rock that died. So you don't want to really put that in your system without curing it, muriatic acid bathing. So what muriatic acid is, all they're doing is just taking this Pucani rock, whether it's from BRS or wherever, they're putting it in a bucket, filling it up with water, putting acid in. You first, for a disclaimer here, make sure you have the proper gear, goggles, rubber gloves. Muriatic acid is no joke. And you have to understand that you want to keep some baking soda on hand to neutralize the acid so you can remove your rock. So before you get into that, please make sure you do your research. I just had to put that out there real quick. So you want to open up that rock. You want to get that skeleton corals that's been encrusted on that rock and died. You want to try to clean that rock as good as possible, because the whole thing of the rock is leaching phosphates, nitrates. You're not trying to create a cesspool of nutrients in your tank. You want to, run that tank with minimal hair algae and stuff like that. So once you do that process, then you're going to set it somewhere in a bucket, whatever. You're going to add your salt to it. You're going to add your heater and your pump. You're going to cure that rock. And what I mean by curing that rock is you're going to get you, I would say for anybody, just go with the API test kit. It's cheap. It's affordable. It's what you want to use when you're testing your rock. And what you're testing your rock for is the nitrogen cycle, ammonia to nitrite to nitrates. So once you get your ammonia levels done and whatever, your rock is then technically cured. So that's what that means. That's the process that you should be taking from any rock, though, not just Pucani. You want to make sure that you're getting good, wholesome, clean rock for a lot of people that don't do what I do.
So
go ahead.
Why would you just not put it in your tank after it's cleaned and allow, you don't need to add fish if you're doing the same thing in a bucket. I guess why would you cure it in like a big tote when you can just put it in your tank and start the whole cycling process?
First off, you have, unless you're doing a blackout on your tank, you're still getting light. You kind of want to keep that in a dark place. You don't want to help any light fuel the bacteria and the die off that's coming out of that rock. First off,
I'm writing this down because this is a great video.
Actually, you guys can check out CJ. He was in this tank with a toothbrush from curing it in his tank.
No, but CJ, the reason why that happened to CJ is because he's a football coach and he completely neglected his tank for who knows how long.
Well, I wouldn't say that. The thing is that you don't want to do that. I'd rather you do it in a secured bucket, constantly changing out that water. First off, you're using less water in that bucket than probably what you're putting in your main display if you have a big tank. Two, so you're using less salt water.
So you do still need to water change the bucket.
You do need to do your water changes because there's a lot that's happening. You're waiting for the nitrogen cycle to dissipate. You're waiting for, that's the cycle. You're waiting to just have your nitrates reading, down to nitrates.
So essentially what you're doing is setting up the exact environment that your tank would have besides the light. You getting that rock to start to basically turn live so that when you're ready to fire up your big system, you can now place that rock in your system
Mhm.
and then add fish right away because the rock is live?
Yes, per se. So once the rock is live, I would still just run the system for a couple days. After that, make sure that water and the rock is mixing really good. Go ahead, do starter fish. Never go and buy a $1,800 gin tank to test out your new system. Just get you a fish that's a little bit hardier just to make sure everything's everything in there. Also, where people make a big mistake is understanding that you don't need to blast your tank with a lot of light out the gate when you don't have anything in there in the first place, but maybe some fish. Those fish are going to create more waste. You want to make sure that things are settling nice. You might have a little bit of spike of nitrates and phosphates because even though the rock is cured, it's looking good, stuff still can still leach out of this rock. So at this point, it's very crucial for you to make your life easier on a new system by maybe only running just blue lights over that with your new fish in there, couple fish, and then slowly bringing up the white spectrum and other, your, should I say, full spectrums at a slow rate and allow your fish, as you're feeding your fish the food, they're creating waste. Guess what? You only have a small amount of beneficial bacteria. Even though the rock is cured, there's only so much bacteria. Bacteria has to be fed, just like we have to be fed to do what? To grow. So you're going to do that in a slow process. You don't overfeed your tank because too rapid, whatever, beneficial bacteria can't help you out. You end up with algae blooms. You end up with all these other problems. So slow and steady, small increments. Even though your rock is fully cured, you want to start off very slow, low light, slowly work your way up. You're feeding your fish a little bit at a time, not too much. Allow the beneficial bacteria that grows and covers the rock. The rock itself is not live. It's the beneficial bacteria that grows on the rock that we are talking about to make live rock.
Now, I'm going to go. I just wrote down my question that I wanted to ask like 10 minutes ago, but you're
Okay.
killing it. And I really want to keep picking your brain because I know a lot of people that watch and a lot of my subscribers, this is kind of like a, what do you call that? The Cliff's Notes or whatever to
Mm-hmm.
the thing. So now you're talking about lights. I get a ton of questions on my channel about what intensity are you running your blues and what intensity are you running your whites. Now, let's, for argument's sake, call it your dial goes from 1% to 100%. And what do the corals need more? Do they need more blue light? Do they need more white light? Now, Michael came over when he came over to the States and he came downstairs. He was like, what's going on with your tank? And he adjusted my lights, my blues and my whites, and I had no clue what he was doing. So can you talk a little bit about not necessarily what you need to start off with to ramp up, but once you're at your where you need to be on what do corals need more blue light than white light? Do you need an equal amount? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's always controversial. So, but I will just state my opinion, and my opinion is the only opinion that matters when it comes to this. At the end of the day, it's very simple. First off, how high are you running your lights off your tank? Second off, what do you want? Do you want color? Do you want growth? What do you want? So it's one of those.
All right, so let's pause there. Let's say
Mhm.
I'm running my light 16 to 20 inches. Let's call it 18 to 20 inches off the very top of the tank.
Okay.
What is a good, I don't know what to say,
Okay. I would tell.
spectrum? What's a
Well,
good percentage to get good growth, like just normal growth?
well, if you want rapid growth, you want to stay about 14K, 14 Kelvin. You want coloration and still have some growth, that's about 20K, 22K, depending on what you want. I always tell people to shoot close to about 100 on the sand bed. Why? Because a lot of
100.
people on 100 par on the sand bed. Why? Because a lot of people like clams. After a clam is over 3 inches, usually, that's when they're able to take in light and make food. So a lot of people have clams. And it's a good point to have 100 on the sand bed. Are you going to have 100 on all four corners of your tank? No. You got rockwear, cliffs, overhangs for LPS, salt, the other stuff that may
So
not want all that light.
let me interrupt you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of beginners, and especially people that are going to be watching my channel and us talk, are not going to understand par, how to test for par, and how to know what par. They're basically getting a light, and they know that they can dim their blues and their whites, and they don't know where to start off and where to end up.
Well, Mike, it's also too. What about the guys that's running T5s? Because that's given a whole different par too. So
right. So let's skip the T5s, the T8s, the metal halides. Let's skip all those big long tubes. Let's call it. Well, what do you run? Do you run LEDs?
I run LEDs, T5s, Reef rights. I run all of them.
Oh, I know you would say that. God damn it.
But they all have their different purposes. So
let's go with LEDs. You have been in the hobby forever, and let's say you have a tank and you're running LEDs. Do you believe that the corals need a higher percentage of blues or a higher percentage of whites? And where would you kind of start off and then go from?
What I will always tell somebody that's running LEDs, always start low. And what I mean low percentage wise, start 30%, somewhere around that range when you're getting corals in. First off, unless you know where those corals came from and you didn't order them from some mailman or whatever, you don't know their setup. You don't know what they're using. They could be running metal halides, T5s, a very bunch of different kind of lights. So therefore, you want to do it very low. You're not going to kill corals from not getting enough light versus blasting them with too much light out the gate. You're going to wipe them out. You're going to do that, and understanding how to dog walk your corals up to the light that you physically like looking at. Why? Because your corals will adapt to that no matter what. The thing is that every week you should only increase your lighting, whether it's the blue and whites together, whatever, 3 to 5% per week, up to the level of what you like. Now, our eyes can't tell us a physical number. Okay, so the whole thing, I know you wanted to stay off of the par kick. Your eyes ain't going to tell you if you're at the right par or have a physical number to see what intensity your light's at, per se. Your corals will let you know if they don't like it because there might be a hot spot with your LEDs. You can't see that once again.
Well, for example, Michael came down and tweaked my lights, and he ramped up the blues, turned down the whites. My corals have been doing absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The corals have just responded unbelievable, but I don't really necessarily like the way it looks to my eye. You know, it seems too blue for me.
That's the problem. A lot of people either like the blue side or they like the whitish blue versus the just white. You know, more people are more with that nice blend of just a white blue, if that makes sense, like a white blue, if that's such a thing.
Like my aquarium box, a white blue.
A white blue.
Did you get your box today, by the way?
No, I did not yet. No, I did not. I got everything.
It should be there tomorrow, probably.
All right. That's the thing. So if you don't like it, and
so for beginners, you want to start your blues and your whites off at, say, 25%, and then which one do you slowly want to increase? Your blues first, or your whites?
Well, you can run your blues a little higher if you want to. You just kind of Mike, it's kind of one of these questions that, you know, I own a $500 par meter. I mean, I'm a person that I believe in a par meter because it gives me a physical number to look at. You know, not everybody's going to go buy one, especially new in the hobby. So it's kind of like, what kind of lights are you using? Are you using a Radion? If you're using Radions or 52 Hydra 52s, guess what? They're going to do the work for you. They have an acclimation mode. You have to just be your own acclimation mode. You can do them both up at the same time, slowly ramp them up, because there's nothing wrong with taking one side and dropping it down and see how it looks. There's nothing wrong to play with your lights out the gate, kind of have a feel of 80% blues or 100% blues and say 35% whites, or 60% blues, 35% whites. Get a look at your tank, see if you like it, and then bring it back down low, and then slowly work your way up to what you liked out the box when you put it on your tank. Because a couple minutes or whatever you tinkering and what the different levels, just to see what you think you'll like on your system, ain't going to really hurt the corals. It's longevity, you know, blasting them and keeping them there for 8 hours that's been in the dark for 2 days while shipping or whatever. You can do that and then just bring them back down, and then, like I said, 3 to 5% every week until you get to what you liked when you first put those lights on your tank. You turned them on, you see what you liked, and then go from there. That's probably the best way I can answer that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. That's how I answer most of questions on lighting, but it's really, really tough when someone's new, who's getting corals, who doesn't know
it's
what
not
kind
even
of
that, Mike. It's the point that they're not. I mean, are they giving you? Are they 8 inches off the water? Are they 12 inches? Are they 16, 24? I mean, there's so many variables on lighting height that you're going to get different kinds of par or, you know, hot spots in the tank. I mean,
that's what's so difficult, is trying to, like,
yeah.
If there was a tutorial video for, which is a great video that I think you should do, or Michael, one of you two reefers, an informational video on starting off. This is your tank. You're adding coral. What's a average range of height to start your light off the sand bed or off the top, and the percentage of blues and whites that you should start with, and crank them up and crank them down, and when you should do that. And it's so delicate for everybody's system, but what's a good way to start from scratch?
For those that are listening, I'm probably not going to make a video on it because I don't like really making videos. I like live streams.
You like live streams.
Here's what I said.
By the time you get to somebody's question, you're already talking about Transformers 9 that's happening somewhere else, and then you've gone off to eat your lunch, and there's 4 people talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Well, I will say this. Most lights companies or / whatever, you're going to get lights always saying that about 8 inches off the water. Well, these lights are very powerful because you brought up the LED and only want to talk about LED. LED light is very powerful. You can use them. You know, you're not going to use them at the intensity you probably ever in your life when it comes to these. There are only very few people. I'm one, and Sanjay is one that will crank there and beat the heck out of the cores with 100% across the board. But at 8 inches off the water, you're going to be low on the percentage rate. Now, if you go, say, 2 feet off the water, well, yeah, run your blues at 100%, run some warm whites at 60, and whites at this, and UV at 100, reds and greens. And I like to stay from 15% and under range on those because I don't want to permit, especially with the red spectrum side of things, I'm not trying to promote or fuel algae growth. But other than that, depending on the lights, depending on the controllability aspect of the lights, there's a lot of black boxes that you don't have all that controllability, but you have where you can really have anything at 100% if you're 2 feet off the water, let's just face it. With a 24, 27-inch deep tank, say 24 is what the normal standards usually. far as depth wise, unless you're doing a frag tank and whatever. But even then, I still run at 100%. But that's just me.
I've always so let's segue real quick into planted tanks. Normally
Okay.
when you start a planted tank, you don't have to worry about the cycle. You don't have to worry about beneficial bacteria because plants don't live off of what corals live off of. They need light and nutrients like corals do, but that's about
Yes.
it. So when you start up a planted tank, you can literally pour water in, get the temp up to where you need it, put your light on, plant galore. Now, most planted lights, actually all planted lights as far as I know, don't come dimmable. You cannot control the different parts of the lights like you can with coral reef tanks. So basically, if you look back here, you basically put the light on top of the tank and watch your plants either burn, melt away, or the tank gets considerably filled with algae, and then you slowly raise your light up because you have no control over the intensity, I guess, of the light. It is what it is. Now, I've always wondered if I take like they call them the Chinese black boxes, you know, like a Mars Aqua or, you know, like a Virospect or all these like beautiful LED lights that you can buy on Amazon and use them for a planted tank. That's my next experiment
I would
because
say yes.
I slowly raised this beautiful marine land planted LED. It's got friggin' a trillion K, and you know the power is probably through the roof. Until I got it to a level where my plants were happy, like corals are happy. They just don't look as cool as corals. They're just green. They're all green. Maybe there's a few reds in there, but as you can see, you can create a beautiful tank that's freshwater. I love. One day, Rico, I look over here like you're over there looking at my planted tank. One day, I'm gonna see you with a planted tank. But corals, planted tanks are way easier, in my opinion, than saltwater. And I don't care what anybody says on either side. You can figure out your planted tank a lot quicker than you can figure out your coral reef tank. And planted tanks, they just basically take care of themselves. Literally, I do a water change on this tank every 2 to 3 months, and I don't dose anything besides root tabs in the substrate. But corals and saltwater tanks are just like unbelievably mind blowing at sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I would still say planet tanks are easier. There's not a lot of variables to them versus so many different variables in a uh, saltwater tank. You know, um, a lot more. You know, pH. Well, re- planet tanks have pH. Calcium. Planet tanks need calcium. You know, alkalinity plays a part in whatchamacallit in the planet tank. There's a lot that are similar, but then what about pests? What about some of the things that whatever? Now, as far as planet tanks versus salt waters in that aspect, certain fish will actually eat and wreak havoc on some of those plants, correct? If I'm not
Yep.
mistaken.
If
So
your heater fails, heat or cold, it's the
heat,
same either way.
you know, fire spectrum, it's a plant. Corals are not considered plants because they're actually animals that actually are in there that create food, chlorophyll by using the light to create these sugars. So if you're not feeding, these guys still need what? These guys still need fed, right?
They
They need
need
to put
light and they
cap.
need nutrients.
They need nutrients. So, um, what can I say that these corals versus a planet tank don't I mean, how do you compare them? I
Well,
mean, as far as
let's say
easiness.
this. There's a bunch of people on my Facebook group. There's a bunch of people on Facebook fish groups
Okay.
that have far more beautiful tanks, planted tanks than I do. And they have greens and light greens
Right.
and dark greens and pinks and reds and
Mhm.
purples and carpeted tanks and low and bushy, and they dose iron and potassium and
Oh,
every other element that you could
yeah,
possibly dose in
yeah,
liquid and in
yes.
powders, and
Hmm.
they concentrate on their lights, and they have to buy pressurized CO2, and they
Yep.
have to do all this stuff to make a beautiful tank, just like you would do to your beautiful tank. And they
Right.
eventually get it dialed in to where what you're looking at is not, uh, you know, green jungle like mine, but a rainbow of gorgeousness. And I think there's something to be said between that person that does that using all RODI water, by the way, for high tech tanks, and someone that does what you're doing with your gorgeous tank. And there's this fine line between people that have high tech planted tanks and people that have coral reef tanks where they just hit that wall and they just mesh, and they're like, mine is way more difficult, mine is way more satisfying, mine is this, mine is that. And I'm just like trying to get everybody to just realize the beauty of
Well,
it all.
yeah,
Can't
I
we
would.
all just get along?
Yeah, and but in you know, because I don't want to get into, well, this is better than that or this is easier than that. I was just going into planet tank versus a reef tank, and really, how similar are they? You know,
Extremely.
I mean, the what goes into them to me are pretty much the same because I dose iron, strong tin, potassium, you know, calcium, alkalinity. These are things, that's how you get that. And you're like, yeah, on these reef farms, these guys got several different, you know, pinks and greens and reds and purples and, you know, so I don't really see a difference. And I would honest, actually, before you asked me to come on here, we were talking, I said, planet tanks are, as far as I'm concerned, no different than a reef tank. You
Yeah,
know,
you said,
at the
you
end of the
texted me
day.
that.
Yeah, or it was yeah, they're no different. I would love to set up a planet tank at some time because I know I'd nail it. Just that's just who I am. And but I
We
would
should
want
do
a big
we should
one,
do
like
a
300
Rico's
gallon.
Planted Tank 2019 challenge.
Oh yeah, don't get me because I'll call Joey and have Joey down here helping me skate.
Uh, well, I love Joey, but
Yeah,
I'm sure you could get a few better aquascapers to your house.
yeah, yeah. Dustin, we'll get Dustin. How about that?
Dustin.
Yeah, we'll get Dustin. He's not too far from me. No, I would love to do something like that, but it would have to be on this kind of level. I wouldn't play around with nothing small. I don't like small tanks per se. If anybody knows me, the more water, the better. The more stability, the more it's going to be forgiving when your kids dump Pepto Bismol or something in your tank. Um, this is just going to be a lot more forgiving. So,
Well, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Shizdank. He's on the live chat. He's my Facebook buddy, my boy from the desert.
okay.
And this dude used to put up videos on YouTube, and I am serious. His planted tanks would outdo just about 9 out of 10 coral reef tanks I have ever seen on YouTube. And he's also, he hasn't put a video up in years and years and years. He actually barely shows his fish tanks anymore, but he grows like a trillion variety of desert plants, cactuses, all sorts of crap that I have no clue. Just like this is my acro, bumbleberry, and this is different than my this and that and this. He knows 1 trillion names of every plants he puts in his tank, He has all these beautiful cactuses. He knows how to take care of things, and he does it very simply and very organically. And it really is amazing. So anybody who's watching, if you go
Yeah,
check out Shiz Dank Tanks, check out his
I
stuff.
won't.
Amazing.
I won't. I won't doubt that he's good at what he's doing or what he has done. I won't say, but I definitely won't get into the well. It's better than a reef tank because once again, to me, um, there's millions of corals. There's millions of corals that are going to grow out just like planet tanks. So
Let me just
I
tell you real quick.
respect and do respect of that, but that's
Rico.
like I'm better than you or you're better than it.
No. It wasn't a better than. It
Or
wasn't a.
personal thought because of when you do
This
something.
is better.
Okay.
It's kind of like you have different boxes you can choose.
Right.
And like I like this box, I like that box, I like this box, I like that box. And I'm not talking about my aquarium box. I'm talking about the checkmark box. Shizdank posts on his Facebook literally, I don't even know how many years I've been friends with him on Facebook. Hundreds of different types of cactuses that it reminds me of coral because they're all these like crazy prickly things. And when they flower, they're amazing. It's like polyp extension on all these cactuses. And there's pink flowers and there's purple flowers and there's green flowers and there's green and orange flowers. And there's like amazing flowers. And he has this whole friggin' whatever. He must have like a greenhouse with all these rare cactuses that he has different pH'd water and different doses for nutrients and different doses for that. So by no means am I saying it's better than a reef tank.
No.
I'm saying there's so many beautiful things that are difficult to take care of, and that's just really great to look at and admire.
Yeah, no, and all I was saying is it's on both spectrums, both sides of that. I mean, there's awesome different different varieties of corals and big displays, just like the plants that you're describing. And in no means I think he doesn't do his thing when it comes to that. I just everything has. I guess what I'm trying to say, Mike, is everything has its own beauty for what it is in its own ways.
Perfect.
There.
I think you should get that, but not right on your chest because you tend to wear a lot of tank tops, but like some on this shoulder and some on this shoulder.
I decided to button up a little bit for you. Might get too
cold?
hot.
Is it cold over there?
No, it's warm down here.
Well, it's friggin' warm in Massachusetts. I'm pissed. I can't even go split wood. It's friggin' muddy and gross, and it's like 50 degrees. It's supposed to be about 0 degrees right now.
I don't know what it is. I think it's probably like 30 degrees here.
So we're coming up on 1 hour and 5 minutes. We've got 51 people watching now. I'm super excited. Why don't we take some questions from the the chat? So I'll let you take a look at the chat, and anybody who needs to ask Rico some saltwater questions, please do so right now.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Let's see. Best beginner fish for saltwater. I'm going to say what that in regards to that is best cleanup crew for fish. Tangs, yellow tangs are very hardy. Your purple tang, fox face, those are definitely outside your typical clownfish. You got your gobies. A lot of those, depending on the wrasse, Melanaris wrasse, 6-line wrasse, 8-line wrasse. Those are all very hardy and good fish to start off with. Your Banggai Cardinal, Pajama Cardinals, those are all pretty good hardy fish. If you want to keep fish in in your reef tank, the best advice that I can give you, as far as even as a beginner, is get fish that are going to do a job for you in a reef tank. Period, point blank. We dip corals. We go through a lot to try to keep parasites down. But if they do make it into your system, you have the right things in there to help fight that or to take care of that for you. So hope that helps out. Greg Jones, Rico, how do we get Mike on the plane to visit Dan? Mike just needs to get on here and whatever, and I'll pick him up from the airport. Fly into Cleveland, and I'll come pick him up. So Mike needs to come to Tidal Guards the 28th of July. Barbecue and the whole 9 yards. So how can you do water changes without you can easily do it. Before there was the RO units or whatever back in the day, we did tap water. That's not so much advised today. It's best to go ahead and you can go to your local fish store. Usually they will probably give you free water. Sometimes they charge. You go to your local fish store. You can go to where they make distilled water dispensers with a 5-gallon. You stick it in for a quarter, fill up a bunch of those, go to your water treatment facility, see if you can buy the 5-gallon or, the jugs and do it. You can buy distilled water, deionized water, usually at your local grocery stores for less than $1 a gallon to make your fresh salt water. So there's multiple ways that you can, if you don't have a RO unit, that you can make salt water. How is it mud season in Massachusetts already? It's freaking February. Okay, that's for Mike. Okay, Rico, thanks for doing the stream. It's been very interesting. Yes, anytime. I thank Mike for having me on. Honestly, he just hit me up and said, "Hey, I'm going live tonight. Let's do it." I'm like, "Okay, sir. I got some questions for you." I was like, okay, I didn't know what the questions was. So I was kind of, I put on my jacket. I turned my hat back around the right way. I was prepared for, I didn't know. So cool. Appreciate him having me on. Really appreciate the advice, entertainment. Hope you all have a great night. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate it. Any more questions or anybody that I missed? Mike? Can you hear me? We can't hear you. There you go. There you go.
Hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I was going to say, Rico's completely lying. How it actually went down is I said, Rico, will you please come on my live stream? And I have no idea how to make this live stream happen. Can you please take care of the rest of it? And he walked me through the entire thing several times. It was basically like he was talking to a 2-year-old who only has about 5 or 10 words in their vocabulary. It was kind of like teaching my 2-year-old Luke how to make an exquisite beef Wellington. It would just almost never happen. So thank you, Rico, for making this happen.
No problem, man.
I was super excited to have you on because I only get to go on yours. And when that happens, you are the king of live streams. So not too many people would want to interrupt you. But then again, there's always 8 to 10 people waiting vigorously to get their 2 cents in on something that, or ask a question. So it's really nice to just have you to myself. I got you to myself for once. God damn it. So it's super nice to have you on because
hey, anytime, man.
A ton of my subscribers ask me so many questions, and it's so nice to have someone on that has answers to those questions that is not only debatable but really knowledgeable. So it's really been awesome to have you on this live stream.
Yeah, nothing's really debatable. It's just do what works for you, and just be patient at the end of the day. So if your subscribers come back and to watch this stream or whatever, if you leave it up or whatever you choose to do for the most part what works for you. And the best advice that I can ever give anybody that's listening, make sure they have a business card. And what I mean by a business card is what's behind me. Make sure that if you're receiving advice, you can physically see they must know what they're talking about. At some, believe all of what you see and a little what you hear and read. And what I mean by read, it's still an opinion. It's written by somebody, and that's their opinion. Try to get on live streams. I started live streams, and that's how I ended up with the Live Stream King name. And now a lot of people are doing live stream, which is, cool. But make sure that the information that you're receiving from people like me or Mike, he's got a nice planet tank back there. Well, guess what? That might be a person that you might want to ask some questions to, because it seems like he's doing a pretty darn good job with the tank, what it looks like behind him. And that's what I mean by that. Believe all of what you see, little what you hear, and read. And know if do your research. Do what said to people is, am I going to allow a guy that just got out of college for brain surgery, or am I going to allow this guy that's been doing brain surgery for 20 years work on me? I'm going to let the guy that just got out of that's been doing it for 20 years versus the kid that just is book smart, that just graduated from surgery and knowing how to do that. I'm going to take my chances with the guy that's been doing it for 20 years. Those are kind of things. That doesn't mean that the people that are don't have all that doesn't have something to bring to the table. Just make sure that they explain and help you understand what it is that they're answering your question. That's all I'm saying. So hopefully that helps.
We have this guy PJF on the chat, says someone had explained to me that if you do a water change, I don't have to add salt every time because the salt stays the same. Is that true? That's not true.
Wait, then you're not doing a water change, you're just topping off.
Yes. So when your water evaporates, you need to add fresh water because the salt stays. When you're doing a water change, you need to add the correct amount of the gallons you took out, put the gallons back in with salt water. Do not use fresh water to do a water change.
No, do not do that.
Believe it or not, there's so many people out there that just, it's a scared question to ask, but at the same time, that person needs to know.
Yes, and don't hesitate to ask, even if it sounds stupid. I'm not a reef forum. I don't bully people or make fun of people for asking a question. Unlike I've seen it done multiple times over the years. The only stupid question is the one you didn't ask. So regardless of how stupid it might sound to you, just ask the question before you make a mistake.
And I agree 1,000,000%. I try to answer every single one of my subscribers' questions, and I will never bust balls on questions.
Yeah.
If you, just like Rico said, the only stupid question is the one you didn't ask. If you got to ask it, go ahead and ask it. If I didn't want to answer it, I wouldn't put up a video.
Right. I definitely wouldn't be on YouTube.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, for sure.
You're getting a lot of compliments here, Rico.
Oh, thanks.
Also, Billy Pipes wants you to start up a nano planted tank.
If I did a planet tank, it definitely would be 300 gallons. So if I
CJ's on too now.
CJ?
Yeah.
Hello, CJ.
CJ is giving the old sunglasses hanging out.
Oh, is that the ALK? I take it. Doing
Apparently,
good.
CJ's done messing with his tank for the night, and he's finally sat on the couch. PJF says, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I kind of did feel like I was asking a stupid question, but you know what? You got to know the right way to do things, folks. So
There you go.
we're like hovering right over 40, and then sometimes we like scoop up to 55 watching.
Wait.
And it's good to see some more people joining the chat. Folks, I don't know how tired Rico is. I'm not tired. I finally just put my kids to bed. He's been on live streams all day. But I would love for some people to ask Rico some questions while he's on my channel, because not a lot of people know about Rico's channel. So please go subscribe to Rico's Reef Tanks. And if you feel, well, is the deadline too late for the Nano Reef Tank Challenge?
Oh, yeah.
It's too late. It's way too late. That was January. But anyway, go check out Rico and come on my channel. I've just shared this to Facebook and whatever all those other things, social medias are. So come on and ask Rico some questions. He's here. Now's the time to ask him.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, this is Joshua. Do I need live rock if I don't want corals? Kids want the Dory and the Nemos. So take it away for the fish onlys.
At the end of the day, live rock is still going to help with filtration. It also gives your fish a place to hide. You can make some cool caves. You do want something in the system. I mean, it's like us. I don't think you would just want to stand outside and not have some kind of structure or home or something like that. Is it necessary? No. I mean, if you go to the pet store, you see some pet stores don't have anything in there but gravel and the fish just swimming in the wind. So to answer the question for real is no. Is it nice to have it? Yes. Should you probably have it? Yes, because we are keeping animals inside of a glass box. So I guess the least we can do is make it as comfortable as possible for them, but it's not necessary.
I'm thinking of, and folks, I talked to Rico. He called me, whatever it was, Sunday. I don't know what I was doing. And we were chatting. And so I was going to go with the native tank, and now I'm leaning towards a saltwater tank, and, you know, having that equipment to be able to house what I need to have a, well, I was going to say badass, but and actually what it is expensive, really, system. But in the end, I can get tons of advice and SBS corals shipped to my house from Rico, and he'll show me exactly what I need to do to keep that going. Or I can do what this question just was and fill the tank with rock and do like just predator, lionfish, all these tiny little miniature things that will kill corals, but will also be badass to look like. So,
and also will probably end up in your lionfish's mouth or belly for dinner.
Yes, exactly. Like maybe I just get 2 lionfish and I feed them, because that's what I was going to do anyway with freshwater. I was going to get 2 bass, and once a week I was going to dump a dozen shiners in the tank, and they just go to town, and then I don't have to feed them for a week. I don't have to run a heater. I barely have to run a filter. I can put seasonal friggin' lily pads in it. That's cool.
I've done that. I've had my share of big freshwater tanks as well. Reefing I've only been doing since like 97.
Oh, only 97? Only 21 years. Not too bad. Not too long.
No, not too
Someone
long.
had a good question for you here. I just read it, and now I lost it. Where is it? What are your thoughts on, Rico, what are your thoughts on sponge filters in a saltwater aquarium? I have a Fluvo Evo 13.5. Oh, I have that one. With a sponge filter still in it. I don't know if I like it. Jerry, what exactly are you talking about? The sponge filter in your Fluval Evo 13.5? Because I have that, and I'm not sure where your sponge filter would be, or what you're talking about. Took the sponge out of the Evo. Well, that's not necessarily a sponge filter. It's just a sponge inside your all-in-one in the back. Still 48. Wouldn't that have been awesome if you got your my aquarium box in the mail today? As I was talking to you, like your wife just came over. Your daughter, how is your daughter, by the way? She doesn't have the
She's
flu?
actually doing, yeah, she's doing good today, but last night after she getting out the hospital, my oldest, as I'm laying in bed, I call him Big Country because he was born 10 pounds 4 ounces at birth, so that's my Big Country. All I hear is this like rhino running to the bathroom, and he starts throwing up. So whatever she had got passed to him, and the other. So it's just like everybody stayed home today from school. So it's not the flu, which is a good thing. It's a stomach bug virus. So
Yeah, that's what my kid has too. Thank good.
and by
Thank
the way,
goodness.
after our conversation, my little girl actually pooped herself as well. Let's just say after you told me your kid did it.
Got to have the clean toilet, or the girls won't go to
Yeah,
the bathroom.
yeah, exactly. So, but they're doing better today, so that's a plus.
All right, what do we got going on here in the chat? We ready to call this a night, folks? Still got 47 watching.
What
You
is
guys
the
are awesome.
sponge? What is the sponge thing, or did you ever figure that out?
Nah, nobody. He's not commenting back. I think he's talking about the actual, just like sponge that's
Canister.
in the filter. Your
Well, I would, I would, I
filtration.
would, I would somewhat enlighten that just in case there are listening. You can get away with canister filters. You just need to make sure you do clean them, because they are good for nutrients trap. Just not no different than a filter sock, but you can run and have them successful. Um, Also, for those that don't know, Tidal Gardens, which Dan is a good friend of mine, his one tank is ran on a canister filter. So, and it's got some easy and some hard aquaporers in there. So, yes, it can be done. It's no different than having a sump underneath your system. Only difference is that one has a lid and it's sealed up. So, as far as I'm concerned, you can run a canister filter and have a successful reef tank.
Oh,
Just clean.
that's actually great. I've had that question asked a lot, and I've never even tried. And it's because of the lid, so there's not a lot of oxygen exchange. Is that what it is?
Yeah, but you're using pumps in the system, so you should still have where you're having surface agitation where you're breaking the water anyway. So
let's say on your sump, just like your truck, you open up your hood of your truck and you can't see anything anymore. There's just a cap over everything. You can get to your oil, you can get to your transmission fluid, and that's it. Maybe your windshield washer fluid. Everything else is just sealed right now.
yeah,
There's no looking at a truck engine anymore and seeing what's going on. It's just a big friggin' seal. So
yeah,
take your sump and seal it
yeah,
with a cover. Doesn't that become a canister filter,
pretty
basically?
much. Pretty much. What makes the difference?
Just the cover. So is there no like oxygen surface agitation going on in the canister that makes it such a like voodoo in the aquarium hobby? Like, most people say, you cannot run a canister filter on a saltwater tank.
Well, you got to honestly consider the source. Maybe check their background and see how long they even been in the hobby to say that, because a lot of things I see is a lot of people say something, but it's because of their sisters, cousins, brothers, uncles, dads, brothers, mother, father-in-laws, this said that. So it must be true.
All right, so let me ask you this. On my 40 breeder, which by the way is finally, after almost 3 years, like super settled in. This has been the longest I've gone without any problems. It looks gorgeous. The corals are growing. The water is clear. The cleanup crew settled in. The fish load, like just everything seems to be running great right now. Now I run a Aquaclear 70 hang on back.
Mm-hmm.
Could I not just take that exact system, run it down into, say, Fluval FX6 or whatever, like a big ass canister filter, which just basically holds more water. So you're talking about adding, like, say,
I'm all for more water.
how
Period.
many more gallons to the 40? You know, let's call it now like it's a 46-gallon tank or however many, 45-gallon tank. But all that water is running through the canister filter. And let's say all the canister filter, like, what are you running? Am I running the same thing in my hang on the back? Am I running filter floss, polyfilter pads, and carbon? Am I just running more live rock in there? Like, and why do people constantly say you can't run a canister for a saltwater tank?
I don't know. You know, I guess they feel like it's not traditional or ideal. I don't know. I can't answer that. I have no idea, to be honest, where they came up with that, where you can't. Where I grew up, there's no such thing as can't anyway, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I've never understood. I've researched that a million times because when I wanted to first start my first saltwater tank, I had a canister filter brand new, and I'm like, oh, just run the canister. Like, no, you should run a hang on back before you ever run a
Well,
canister
kind of
filter.
like
It's
what
like,
we
it's
used
crazy.
to run back in the day was trickle filters. I don't know if you're familiar, Mike, with a trickle filter system. And what it was is a big lid that the return nozzles go into this lid, and there'll be a tray with poly filter, and it was enclosed and dumped straight through over live rock and whatever, and then come out over here to a return pump to pump it back up. The only
That's
difference is,
perfect.
I mean,
That's just like a hang on back.
so I mean, the only difference is that depending on your evaporation, you either put styrofoam over in that section, just have a hole cut for your return line to go up, but it was still pretty much a box that water trickled onto this tray that had all these little teeny holes underneath and a poly filter on top, and it cleaned your water. So
This is what I'm talking about. This is what I want to hear.
Yeah, so I don't know where, why you can't. Dan does it right now at Tidal Gardens, and he's fine. He's actually got a small filter, enclosed little whatever.
Yeah, I'm actually now, like, wondering. I'm still running an Aquaclear 70 on my 40-gallon breeder, but like, I just told you, everything looks as smooth as it ever has for the longest it's ever has. So why would I want to change it now?
Well, you probably don't, because here's a downside to that. Now here's what comes. Now you got this canister. You're not really looking at what's going on at your, what you got, the Aqua 70 right there to know to maybe change a filter floss or the carbon little pack. It's all contained. So out of sight, out of mind. That's where some people might get themselves into trouble and maybe not frequently clean like it needs to be clean or something. I don't know. But for you, if you're going to do it. More water volume. I'm all for more water volume. The more water, the better. Or don't fix it unless it's broke. And if you're thriving, hey, leave it alone.
2 good points. Don't fix it unless it's broke, which we talked about on the phone personally. So trust me, I'm not putting a canister filter on that thing. And 2, what the hell? I just forgot 2. Jesus. Too many points. Oh, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind. When I see my hang on back and I can physically look at what's going on and pull it or leave it for another couple days, it's way easier than this tank right here. Canister filter, big canister filter, tons and tons of power for a 40 breeder. I have not cleaned in 8 months, probably. Maybe even 10 months. It could be close. It could be closer to 10 months. And it's just a giant box that pumps water that you have stuffed with media and carbon and floss and everything possible, and you just forget about it and your tank's going. But it's a good thing to pull those out once in a while and clean them. And I especially think it's probably better to do that more often than not if you're going to run one on a saltwater tank.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Rico, what do you think? You want to go night-night?
Hey, I'm waiting. Shoot away.
Well, what do we got? We got any more questions? Eheim canister filter, calcium reactor, created a piping manifold, already had a CO2 from blah, blah, blah. Oh, my God. I've been watching Mass since I was 12. I'm going to turn 16 soon. Are you guys against all-in-one reef tanks for nanos? No, I have an all-in-one reef tank. Evo.
No. Why would I be against it? Here's okay, let's think about this. All in one. Okay, so I'm gonna go grab my sump. I'm gonna just attach it right here to the side of my tank and make it an all-in-one. What's the difference? It's just a sump within the tank. It nothing wrong with it, not at all.
That actually that's what I was thinking like 2 years ago. As you say, like all in one, just like you said, the filter's right here, or the filter's right here.
Right.
Or actually the filter's over here. The filter's over here.
What difference does it make?
It's the exact same thing.
I think a lot of things are really put too much thought in and make things more difficult than what they have to be, period. And we have to kind of break that and just be simple. Keep it simple. KISS method, keep things simple. Period.
That's my whole method. KISS simple. Even a million times more than any of the kisses that could possibly be imagined. Keep it simple, stupid.
That's it. Same thing when I look at, as me being a truck driver, and every time I see a Swift go by, Swift driver, sure wish I finished training. That's all I can say about no. But just keep things simple. You'll be
that's
all right.
That's the AAA of the truck driving.
Mm-hmm.
He just couldn't even get his GED.
There it is. So.
All right. Well, you know what? This was an absolutely awesome live stream.
All right. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you on. I'm so happy you taught me how to do this. I will probably be calling you next week and I'll be like, hey, listen, I want to go on live with this dude and I have no clue what I'm doing. Can you please show me exactly what you showed me last time?
Yeah.
But what would even be better is if we could do this like maybe once or twice a month. Because I know a lot of my subscribers love talking saltwater and you know a lot about saltwater. So I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Just give me heads up, let me know. And I'm sure you get tons of feedback from this. And, I guess at the end of the day, do what makes you happy and your subscribers. So, yeah.
I'm happy. You're happy. We're all happy.
Yeah.
Everybody on the chat's happy. This has been one no BS night. I didn't see one shitty talk on the chat. It's been very chill.
Awesome. Yep,
very chill, awesome. And lots of information has been shared. So I'm loving this, man. So it was good. Thanks for showing me how to do this because I'm a dum-dum when it comes to computers.
I mean, I guess all you have to do in return to pay me back for that is make sure you make it to Tidal Gardens July 28th. Get your butt on a plane. Let me know.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop you right there.
I mean,
Listen.
Uncle Greg told me. He just sent me a text and told me to make sure I get you on a plane.
I am a man of my word, and I do what I say. I will never promise you that I will be in Cleveland on whatever date that was.
Oh,
I
July
will try,
28th.
but I'm not
There
going
you
to
go.
promise
Try.
you.
There you go. Just try to make it, I guess.
I can promise you
So,
that I'll be in New Jersey next November for whatever the aquatic experience. That'll be a blast.
you mean
I can
this
also
November
promise
coming
you
up?
next month I'll be in Sarasota,
Mm-hmm.
Siesta Key on vacation, chillaxing.
Oh my.
No
Well,
kid
if
vacation.
I'm
Or
on the
will
live
I?
stream,
I could
please
be in
don't
California.
drop in. Just enjoy yourself.
Oh, don't worry. I will. There'll be nothing.
There
There'll be
you go.
no
Just
outside communication besides
no.
Coronas
Leave
and
it.
sand.
Yep. Leave your phone, turn it off, leave it in the hotel room, whatever you got to do. But
Yeah.
enjoy
huck it in the
yourself.
ocean.
Have a safe trip on that one.
All right, folks. Let's call it a day. Thank you, Rico.
All right. Yeah, no
Love you,
problem,
brother.
man. Hey, you too, bud.
Thanks
So,
for everybody
take it easy.
coming by. Good night. Say good night, Rico.
Good night, everybody. Thanks.